We want the truth, so watch Truth Wanted live Fridays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTW and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/calltw.
So you think that you can tell us how to live our lives, never questioning the source from which your moral code derives. You think that suffering is part of some great plan that's been devised. I wonder what will it take for you to start opening your eyes? I wonder.
Hey everybody, welcome. We are live. It is Sunday, January 30th, 2022. If you heard that extra beeping in the intro, that was my high glucose alarm going off, which, is a good thing to go off, I guess, if I get warnings, but I already took care of it. I'm Matt Dillahunty, joining this week, Dr. Darrel Ray from Recovering from Religion. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Matt. Thanks. Good to be on again.
We have a bunch of calls, so I guess we're just going to jump right in here with, well, I will jump in. I want to make one more announcement, and that is that last week I implemented a new policy, which is going to be continuing, which has been dubbed the 30-second policy or the enough rope policy. But in any case, if you're a theist or if you're advocating for a position that we're going to be arguing about, I'm going to make sure that as long as you are doing your best to make your case, that you get 30 seconds at least, and you'll get more time the better you do. So it's worth it to bring your A game, to speak clearly, to define your terms, to move forward in a way that progresses the conversation. But if you avoid answering questions, if you're just stalling, if you're just calling in to preach and not provide any actual evidence or whatever else, then you probably won't get the 30 seconds. But we'll see how it goes, because we've got Kyle in New York City, or not New York City, but just Kyle in New York. Pronouns are he, him, and it's a little bit about prayer. So welcome to the show, Kyle. How can we help?
Hi, I have a question about prayer. You see, I used to, a couple of years ago, I used to, really pray a lot, and I told myself, I can't take this depression anymore. I'm going to really follow what Jesus says, to pray and not lose heart, follow the parable of the persistent widow. And I tried that, I tried praying for 23 days, for a long time. I went the longest, I kept praying and praying and praying. And then on the 23rd day, I prayed for God. I kept praying for God to speak to me, to say my name, say something. And, I did. I woke up and I heard Kyle, right? And I had other times, I kept praying and praying and praying for him to heal me. And, I prayed for him to heal me. And then I woke up hearing a voice saying, I'm healing you audibly. A lot of people would say, oh, you're schizophrenic, you're hallucinating. But people in the Bible heard voices and, hearing voice. I to make this even more realistic, when I was a little kid, I was on FaceTime with my cousin, and all of a sudden, the camera the FaceTime camera froze, and a spirit, actually, I can even, if you want to see it, I could email it to you. It's a real picture. How do
you know it's a spirit?
Well, because I was alone in the room, and all of a sudden the camera the FaceTime froze, and a red guy with black eyes, very scary looking, appeared. And I have the picture till this day, so I know that.
How do you know it's a spirit?
How do I know? Oh, I mean, it wasn't there in the room. Well, I didn't see it in the well because it's obviously it was on the picture, and I didn't and what else?
How do you know it's a spirit?
It couldn't have been.
And this is your absolute last chance. How do you know it's a spirit?
I don't know what it was. Let me just say that.
Correct. You don't know what it was. So why did you claim it was a spirit and then try twice to explain what it was when the truth is you don't know what it was? Why did you do that?
I've seen. Well,
Why the fuck did you do that? I'm asking you why you did that.
Why I did what? I'm sorry.
Why you lied.
I thought it was. No, I didn't lie.
You did lie. You did lie. You claimed it was a spirit. Kyle, stop. You claimed it was a spirit. I asked you how you knew it was a spirit, and you tried to offer an explanation. I asked you again how you knew. You tried to offer an explanation. I asked you again, and then you said you don't.
Know what it was.
Kyle, shut up. Stop interrupting me. I let you talk. Now, when we finally get to you don't know what it was, all I asked you was, why did you try to pretend like you knew what it was when you didn't? There's a reason I'm asking this question.
Well, what else could it have been? Because I didn't see it.
That is a fallacious argument, Kyle. I didn't ask you for any explanation about what it was. I said, why did you pretend to know what it was when you know you didn't know what it was?
I just thought that's what it was. That's all I have to say. You know. But back to you know what I was trying to say. So I kept praying, right? And kept praying and praying and praying. And I know demons exist from my personal experience because I've seen them and I have I believe.
How do you know?
One, you know?
How do you know?
How do I know what?
How do you know demons exist?
Well, I've seen them with my eyes.
How do you know that what you saw was a demon?
Well, because it was evil looking, and the definition of a demon is an evil spirit.
No. So stop, Kyle. I don't even believe you're for real now. You know it was a demon because it was evil looking. Evil looking isn't a thing. And where did you get this idea that demons are evil looking, or what is evil looking? I mean, you're just making shit up now, Kyle.
Yeah. But the thing that really got me angry was I prayed and prayed and prayed, and then for healing, because you know I have some problems, and I prayed for God to heal me. And while I woke up, like I said, and I heard a voice saying, "I'm healing you." And it's been 4 years, you know. Then I gave up on prayer because I didn't see anything happening. But I kind of get this feeling. I'm angry at God because He just doesn't. He hasn't healed me after I've prayed and I heard a voice telling me I'm going to be healed. And it makes me so mad. I'm like, you know, is it because I don't have? Is it because I didn't have strong faith? I mean, I know Matt was once a Christian, so I mean, what would he say? I mean, if a voice told him, you know, that he's going to be healed, and would he kept praying even after not seeing any healing? I mean, what is it? What do you think? What does he think? Hello? Hello?
I don't know what it is you're asking. I gave up praying a long time ago when it became clear that there's no good reason to think that it works. I don't sit around and pray.
I know it's a pain. It's a pain in the ass. You know.
Wow. Never mind, Kyle. You just go ahead and keep talking.
Yeah, no, I'm just frustrated. I just don't understand because, you know, all these Christians say that prayer works. It does miracles. It does wonders. But I mean, I've had experience, like I've said, that you know that made me feel like God is there, and sometimes I feel like he's really real, and he's just not. He's enjoying seeing my suffering, and I don't know. It's like I'm scared that there's nothing. I mean, even though I've had all these experiences, I'm still scared. I'm not convinced that there is something after death. You know, it feels like I'm living in the middle of nowhere. You know, and I feel like I'm hopeless. I don't know what to do. I don't know where to turn to. I look to science if they're going to create something that will keep humans living forever. I look to, you know, to something called cryogenics, right? Just, you know, but I just feel like, you know, if there's no God and if there's no hope, what's the point? Where's the meaning of life? I mean, what do I do? Keep praying? Follow the instruction of Jesus and pray? And I mean, it's hard to be perfect. You know, He wants you to be perfect. He wants you, you know, not to lie, not to steal.
Kyle, could I interrupt, Kyle?
Stop talking.
Yeah, go ahead.
Kyle, would I?
Go ahead.
I would like to get a word in edgewise here. First of all, have you really examined which God you were praying to? How many different gods have you tried?
Jesus Christ, and the God of it, the God of the Bible, God of Israel.
Okay, I see. Well, what if you were Jewish? Would that be the same God if you were praying as a Jew to a God for healing?
Oh, it would be the Father. It would be the Father. It would be a different God. It would be God the Father, the Creator.
A different
Jewish,
God.
that would be in Harvard.
Okay,
Yeah,
and if you're a Muslim with this same pain, you would be praying to Allah. Isn't that the same God that the Jews have and the Christians have?
Not sure. I don't know.
Right. There's you could decide which God you want to pray to, but if that one's not working, and I wonder why you've not tried other gods. What stops you from trying other gods?
Well, because I get this thought in my head: if a God really cared out there, He would have helped anyway, right?
Okay. The second thing I'd like to ask is, you sound like you've got some existential concerns, which is normal for a human being. Most of us are concerned about dying someday, and we're all going to die. So have you seen a therapist to talk about your existential concerns, a licensed mental health therapist?
No, because they would probably think I'm crazy and put me on pills and lock me up. So.
Well, so in other words, you don't know what your mental condition is, whether it's something that needs treated or not. That's what you're telling me. And because you don't know. And so if you have a pain inside your body and you ignore it for long enough, and it gets worse and worse.
I feel.
Kyle, please stop talking and listen to Dr. Ray. He's saying if you had a pain in your body and ignored it. Instead of trying to jump on things, listen, because he's trying to help you.
I've been to doctors.
Oh, shut the fuck up and listen, or I'm dropping you. Go ahead.
So I'm just asking, if you had this pain and it was in your body, you would go to a doctor and you'd get a diagnosis. You would be the worst person to diagnose. Why am I having this pain? We're pretty bad at diagnosing our own bodies. I'm saying the same thing about diagnosing our mental condition. We're pretty bad at diagnosing our mental condition. I would hope you have some understanding of medical science, and I hope you've been to a doctor. I hope you probably had antibiotics or some other treatment that kept you healthy. Am I correct? Have you had antibiotics or some treatment that kept you healthy from a medical doctor?
Well, I'm more of a natural approach, so I wouldn't really.
That wasn't my question. Really, have you been to a medical doctor who treated you?
Yeah, in the past.
And did they treat you and help you get over whatever the ailment was?
Oh, well, yeah.
Oh, okay. And all I'm saying is, mental health is the same way. And from some of the things you've just described to us, it sounds to me like you would benefit from talking to someone who understands the ins and outs, the nuances of mental health. Now, you prayed and you prayed and you prayed. You got no answer. I'm going to suggest if you went to it.
I did.
Oh, it took you 23 days to get an answer or something like that.
No, I prayed for like 23 days. And then on the 23rd day, I heard a voice call my name. It sounded like Jesus Christ, not God, not a demon.
How do you know what Jesus Christ sounds like?
Well, the feeling of his voice was so powerful that it made me feel like, I don't know for sure, but I felt.
You don't know for sure. You just keep making stuff up, Kyle. You claim that after 23 days, you heard a voice say your name, and that voice sounds like Jesus. And then when pushed, you're like, well, I don't know what Jesus sounds like. So, this is like a sketch out of Blackadder, where you're talking about how the stone of Galveston is bluer than the eyes of the Infanta when you've never seen either one of them. So you heard a voice in your head and you're convinced it's Jesus. What did that voice tell you?
It just said my name in a very nice way.
That seems like a completely useless thing for an all-powerful being to do, doesn't it? To make you wait 23 days and then just say your name and stop.
I personally, I don't want to believe that God is cruel. I mean, my hope is
Okay,
even if I lose faith-
Kyle, I'm dropping this call. It doesn't matter what you want to believe. It matters what there's evidence for. And if you can't decide that you care enough about the truth, if you can't decide you care enough about your mental health to go seek out expertise on that, if you don't care enough about the truth to say, hey, it just doesn't make sense that I wait 23 days and all I got was my name. Instead, I'm going to keep believing something because that's what I want. I don't care what you want. I'm sorry that you can't get past that and care about the truth. Someday, I hope you do.
I'd like to suggest you go look up religious OCD, because what you've described sounds like the symptoms of religious OCD or something close. You may find something to act upon there.
So anyway, thanks everybody for tuning in. If you're watching us live in chat, there's lots of ways that you can help support. You can support by participating, but also there's a donate link down below that helps us support the atheist community of Austin. You can also get yourself some merchandise. They'll have a graphic up on the screen there that'll direct you to all the hottest merchandise that all the cool kids are having right now at tiny.cc/merch ACA. You can become a member on YouTube as well. That'll get you out of slow mode, so that if you're sitting there and you desperately want to say something to the person who you suspect is a troll, but slow mode's on, this will get you out of it, along with a couple of custom icons and things like that. You can go to patreon.com/the Atheist Experience and support us there as well. We don't have any official discussion forums for you. There are unofficial Facebook pages that we like to direct people to. There's the Atheist Experience private group and the Atheist Experience, or the Atheist Experience fan group, and then the Atheist Experience private fan group. We don't have any say or control over what goes on in any of those. That's between you and the moderators, but we wanted to direct people to conversations as well. In addition, there's also the unofficial ACA Discord, and neither of us, neither Darrel nor myself, will be able to be there afterwards, but there are other people there as well. And you can participate in discussions and provide your feedback, questions, and concerns to tv@atheist-community.org. That email address goes to the producers and the people behind the scenes. And yeah, that's that. So Darrel, I'm going to take a call here. Whoa, wait. I lost it. There we go. This is Eric in Kentucky, who is calling on behalf of Recovering from Religion, and I'm gonna sit back and let you steer so that you and Eric can sell everybody on an organization that you sold me on a decade ago or more.
Yeah, it's probably been at least a decade, maybe more. Yeah, it may have been more than that. I think it was. It is more. It's like 11 years, I think. Yeah.
So welcome, Eric.
Hey, Eric, are you there?
Hello, Dr. Ray and Matt. I'm here.
Hey, okay. Well, we've got so many Erics. I didn't know which one it might be. That's cool. Yeah, Eric is the director of our helpline. He's the one that kind of oversees all the chats and calls that come into Recovering from Religion. So if you call us or chat with us, you're gonna get some of the people he's working with and training and helping.
How long you volunteered, Eric?
Well, I've been volunteering since 2019, and it's actually a pleasure to be speaking to you again, Matt. I'm sure you don't remember, but that same year I called into Talk Heathen, and I had almost my entire foot out of the door of magical thinking and religion, and I called in, and you and Jamie helped me get my foot the rest of the way out the door. And well, it wasn't long after that until I signed up to be a volunteer from at Recovering from Religion, and started out actually on the helpline as a helpline agent, and worked my way up, got a promotion, and got double my salary. It went from 0 to double that. So doing pretty good.
Awesome. I mean, when you get promotions and stuff, that's always nice.
Eric is on here for two reasons. Where we have a big fundraiser this month. It's the only fundraiser, the only way we raise funds for Recover from Religion, because we aren't a membership kind of organization, and we offer all of our, like what Eric does, it's all offered for free. So if you call into us, nobody gets paid to do it, and everybody is volunteering to help whoever wants to call in. But Eric also has a special request. Actually, he's got a concern, and he wanted to ask if he could throw that out here. What's your concern, Eric?
Well, one of the big things I've been working on back in 2021, and also going with my plans for 2022, is we really want to make a push to improve the recovering from religion's technology to make ours more efficient, to get rid of some of the manual labor tasks and focus more on helping real people rather than doing things like looking at spreadsheets. And so we have some web development projects that we're doing to accomplish that. And for those of you listening, if you have maybe you wouldn't be into being a helpline agent, taking calls and chats, maybe you wouldn't be into running a support group, but if you have tech skills and you wouldn't mind donating a couple hours of your week, then we could really use those who have skills with JavaScript, or if you want to work on the Secular Therapy Project website, if you know the programming language Ruby, we could certainly use your help with that.
It's always nice to hear that there's plenty of different opportunities that aren't just, hey, I'm a good listener, or I'm good to help out in other ways. I can't count the number of times in the past, decade and a half or two now, where somebody's been like, oh, I'd love to help the community, but I don't know what skills I have. Trust me, there are organizations where if you can help set up chairs and take down chairs ahead of and after an event, that's a bigger help than anything like public speaking or accounting type stuff.
Thanks for calling in, Eric.
You got it. Thanks for giving me your time, and enjoy the rest of the show.
I'd say keep it up, Eric, because my salary at the ACA started at $0 and has doubled every year.
Wow. Hey, you're doing even better than I am.
That's right. As long as we don't look at the actual math. All right.
And you've been doing like 17 years or something, haven't you, man?
I know.
Wow.
17 times 0 is, oh my gosh, that's amazing.
17 zeros.
So, yes, I got 17 zeros in my paycheck. There's just no other digits. JR in Arkansas, pronouns are she, her. I think, are you claiming that you have visible proof of a spiritual world?
Yes, I'm so glad that tickles you. How are you today?
Yeah. I'm all right.
Okay.
How can you might be able to do better than the last couple of callers here? So you've got visible proof that there's a spiritual world. Go ahead, lay it on us.
And I will be happy to come back anytime, because this requires a little bit of preparation. You do need a pendulum or pendulum type item. If you have something that already has your energy that you use, a wedding ring, a piece of string, something that is weighted on the end, a necklace, something that can freely.
I got earbuds. I got earbuds right in front of me that I've used before.
It's okay. Sometimes I use my keys for my car. It's something that has a little bit of weight on the end. We're going to try, because it's, well, that might work. That might work.
Well, I'm not sure what we can do here, but so what you're going to be describing here, you do realize that I'm a magician as well, and that I'm familiar with the ideomotor reflex, and I'm familiar with all the various sorts of dowsing and how none of them have ever demonstrated the truth of the claims. So let's assume that I had a pendulum here. How would that possibly prove the spirit world?
I would like you to hold it up, and can you do that? I know you said you said I do realize, but no, I do not realize those things about you. I do not, and it doesn't matter. It's fine. It's fine.
So what I'm asking is, how will this possibly prove the spirit world?
Well, we can try it and see.
No, ma'am.
What happens?
No, ma'am. I'm asking for a specific reason, because I'm not going to sit here and waste everybody's fucking time playing mumbo jumbo. I'm going to dangle a pendulum here. Let's say that it moved in ways that I don't understand and that you don't understand. How would that demonstrate the truth of the spiritual world?
Because I'm going to be calling on the Holy Spirit, first of all, and not Satan or anyone else. And under the sound of my voice, it will move. We will establish a yes, a definite yes, establish a definite no, establish a definite maybe to some simple questions like, is 2 and 2 4? Is 2 and 2 5? But it all actually, I need to find out because of your energy and where you are on the vibrational meter.
Wait. What's a vibrational meter? What's a vibrational meter, and how do you tell where I am on it? Because in my entire life, I've never heard of a vibrational meter. Is this something that you can produce and show us?
There are you can get some online if you don't know about them, you would never have looked them up. But they start at the level of shame, and each level has a number assigned to it. Shame is a 20. I actually know where you are on the meter already. I did ask the question of the Holy Spirit, and you are
cool.
Up at anger, which is 150 on the meter. The Dr. Darrel, he is at the very bottom, shame, which is a 20. There are 17 levels on the meter. The highest is enlightenment, which is 700. Above those are 2 additional levels that are not usually listed on a regular meter, which is a master teacher. That's the level that I am. And the next level, ascended master, which is...
Well, JR, if you're a master teacher and you are able to tell where on the meter I am, when I do a Google search for vibrational meter, I don't find this meter that you're talking about. As a matter of fact, I find pages and pages of vibration meters, but I don't find the one you're talking about. How do we know that the meter you've got and the measurements that you're pointing to are real? Is there some science behind this, or are you just going with whatever you heard?
Well, if we, and like I said, this might take another show, and I'd be happy to do that.
Another show.
When we ask those questions, if we ask those questions, we can easily ask, just like if I say, is 2 and 2 4? And the established answer is yes, or is 2 and 2 5? And the established answer is no. We can ask.
So you have a pendulum. You have a pendulum in front of you, right?
I do.
And you can ask it questions, right?
I can, but I want you to have
ask
one.
it what card I'm holding up right now.
Okay. Maybe we can get one that something. I mean, you can use, like I said, anything with your energy.
I'm holding up a playing card in full view of the camera. Ask your pendulum what card it is. If you hit it, you get more time.
The Holy Spirit says we're not going to play that kind of game with you.
Okay. Well, you tell the Holy Spirit he can go fuck himself because he's a little coward and a liar for not being willing to come out and demonstrate. You claim that you have a method that can check for the truth. And as soon as we try and put it to a fair test, all of a sudden your Holy Spirit is cowardly. I think you're full of shit and you know it, but thank you so much. Why is the Holy Spirit afraid of us, Darrel?
I don't know. It seemed like if it's really that intelligent or whatever it is, it could just open its mouth and tell us whatever it wants or talk to us. Or when the previous caller had to take 23 days to get an answer, this one only gets an answer when it's under the conditions she prescribes. I don't know.
Interestingly, nobody in chat got the card right either, but it's funny.
I would not go against you, Matt. I've seen your magic way too often.
I don't need to do a magic trick. There's a 1 in 52 chance that person could get it right.
Yeah.
And,
right.
It's not my fault if they don't try.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe we should have started with, is it red or black?
Well, there you go.
All right. Jessica in Utah is on to try to tell me how atheism is a privileged position that many people can't take advantage of. Haven't you and I spoken about this before?
No, sir. I've never spoken to you before.
Sweet. So how is it a privileged position to just say, I'm not convinced a God exists?
Sure. So I suppose just saying it isn't necessarily a privilege. It's more having the time and the ability to consider these propositions and then come to the conclusion that they are false. That is oftentimes a level of emotional and psychological effort that I feel many people can't actually apply because it would strip them of the illusion that things are somewhat in their control when they're not. And that's what I would present.
I don't know how any of that makes a case that atheism is some privileged position, because all you said is some people are willing to consider it and some people aren't.
Sure. And I think that it has to do with, let's go with my case. I came from Mormonism, where I had the illusion. So I'm also trans, by the way. So I had the illusion as a Mormon that I had magical powers that could heal the people around me who were sick, and that could guarantee them a life in a beautiful, wonderful paradise forever. And when I came to the conclusion that probably isn't the case, I do believe it stripped me of some degree of the internal strength I had to face the real hardships of reality. And whether that was a real illusion, or obviously there's no such thing as a real illusion, it was not necessarily true.
I'm sorry, but that's just
a lot of my
strengths. That's just not the way privilege works. To suggest that there's something about atheism that requires one or is advantaged by someone being in a privileged position. Yeah, it's true that if you consider religions and determine that they haven't met their burden of proof, then you will stop believing in magical underpants and things like that. But that's not a position of privilege to consider a question and come to a conclusion. There's nothing about society that privileges a group of people to be atheist. And as long as atheists are the more marginalized, there's very few groups of people who are more marginalized than atheists.
Sure. Yeah.
I mean, you are a member of at least one group that is definitely more marginalized than atheists, and that's the trans community. But would you argue that being trans is privileged?
No, I would not.
Yeah. And yet there are some people who would never come out as trans. They're worried about, are they going to be harassed because of their appearance? And so perhaps there are some people who are genetically privileged such that they can be openly trans as opposed to not openly trans. But it would be ridiculous to say that being trans is somehow a privileged position. And I was glad you laughed at it, because it's absurd.
Right. But I would say, kind of to come back to the statement of there's a privileged position, relating it to transness, I would say for me, I was not able to get to the place where I could say, no, I'm ready to transition, because it costs $10,000 and you need attorneys and you need doctors. And it was a very difficult process that I could only have accomplished once I had reached a certain level of privilege within society, when I had enough money,
sure,
and a company would give me time off.
Sure.
So the ability to say is that
the ability to transition and stuff can be contingent upon privilege, but that has nothing to do with whether or not you're trans. You're trans no matter how privileged or unprivileged you are in other categories.
That's true. I don't have a rebuttal for that.
Yeah. I got to move on, Jessica, but I don't see atheism as a privileged position, but I do see where you're right in the sense that there are some people who, for fear or indoctrination or discomfort with challenging things, some people don't like confrontation. They're never going to ask the questions that get them to atheism, but that doesn't make atheism a privileged position. But I thank you for the call. And on that note, if you want to have discussions like that and other discussions that are similar, there's an atheist versus theist debate group. Now, obviously, that last call didn't really get into atheism versus theism, but if you go to tiny.cc/AXP fan debates, you can participate there as well. And I'm not sure if everybody saw it, but earlier today was an episode of Talk Heathen with J. Mike and Johnny Angel, and in between Talk Heathen and the Atheist Experience, you would have got to see the Nonprofits, which airs Sundays at 3:00 and includes new hosts and new segments. And if you missed any of those programs, you can go to tiny.cc/AEN podcasts. That is your one-stop destination for all of our shows as audio-only podcasts. So if you're tired of looking at me, you can just listen if you want to. I don't know why you'd want to do that, because then you'd miss seeing Darrel, and we don't want to deprive you of the chance to see Darrel. But and the reason we have all that is because we, as always, have the most amazing crew that can put themselves up on the screen. I will point it. Oh, look, there's one and there's two. There's an empty chair. So now would be the time for, if you're a theist and you want to get your call in without it being screened, probably there's at least one empty seat right there. You might be able to sneak through.
I'm going to be on the secular sexuality this week, Matt. Talking.
You're doing everything. You're doing XP with me today. You're doing the hang up with me on Wednesday. You're doing secular sexuality on Thursday.
Right.
My
gosh, we're going to be talking about sex addiction as a crazy idea. But anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
I'm interested.
You and I are sex addicts. You and I are sex addicts.
Yeah. I'm interested in all kinds of BS. I also want to thank the moderators and the call screeners and the people who are taking notes and doing timestamps to make all of this much, much easier. We have like a full set of lines. So here we go. Continuing on, Andrew, pronouns are he, him, and Maine, has a question for Dr. Ray. Welcome, Andrew.
Hello. So I see that Dr. Ray, you're a psychologist. I had questions about like narcissism kind of, and how you diagnose that, and with like people in positions of power or leadership, or they have a platform, and also anger issues. And do you think that Matt fits these descriptions?
I don't understand what you're asking. It's not.
Am I an angry narcissist, and what does it have to do with religion? Is what he's asking.
Oh, I see. I see a lot of narcissists in the world. I've been around Matt a lot. I've never seen. He doesn't meet the criteria, but I'm not here to diagnose anybody, and he's a friend of mine. I don't diagnose my friends anyway. But I will say this: it's hard to diagnose unless you've got quite a bit of training and you got a good sample of behavior or some psychological tests to help you get to that diagnosis. So it's actually dangerous to be sitting on a radio show and talking about people who may or may not be anything in terms of mental health. I'm a psychologist, but I also know it's stupid to diagnose people at long distance. Although I'll say that we certainly have seen a lot of people who might meet the criteria who are standing up preaching every Sunday morning on mega churches. I'll go there.
So Andrew, did you have something else you wanted to ask, or were you just trying to take a sideways pot shot at me, which seems kind of cowardly and shitty? Maybe you have anger issues.
Well, I don't feel angry, but I mean, I guess one thing is,
you don't feel angry, but you called back in specifically to ask my co-host if he thought I was angry narcissist. So clearly you're still a little butthurt about the last time you got hung up on.
I don't even remember. I mean, that might have happened more than once. I'm not sure.
I'm sure it has. Anyway, do you have something else that's remotely relevant to the subject here at the show?
Yes, actually. So I've thought about this a lot. Just my mother is actually a psychiatrist, and don't you think mental health is kind of subjective? I mean, people just kind of make up baskets to throw people in, and it seems overall, I don't know. To me, it just seems like it's not like mathematical or anything, or it's not like surgery. I just feel like that's kind of subjective. What do you think?
So I think there are hard sciences that are closely tied to things like mathematics, something like physics, and that there are weaker sciences and social sciences, and that these still don't end up being, hey, let me just pull something out of my ass and make a basket to throw people in, which is why we have like the DSM, which takes a bunch of experts and has them talk and negotiate. Are they going to get things right? Are they going to get things wrong? Yes. Is there a hard, clear thing that where we can say, oh, here's the difference between a psychopath and a sociopath and this other thing? And we change the names of disorders as we understand them better. But to suggest that the entire field of psychiatry, psychology, sociology, et cetera, that are going about categorizing people is just something where people make it up and there's no checks and balances is extremely dishonest. It's not like this is astrology where people are in fact
No.
just making shit up.
No, it's not. It's not astrology. I guess, how does someone determine what's right or wrong? I mean, it seems like it's just a consensus.
Maybe you could go to school and learn rather than sitting around armchair speculating as if you have the expertise to overcome the entirety of the psychological disciplines.
I know it's a consensus, and we all know consensus can get things wrong. So that's all I'm saying is it's kind of flawed.
Okay, which opinion is going to be more flawed, the consensus or yours?
I mean that's subjective. I mean, what?
No, sir. It's not subjective. Somebody's opinion, if they're different, is more or less objectively wrong than the other. And what are the odds that you, who don't even know how they go about making these decisions, are more likely to be correct than the bulk of experts in the field?
Okay, well, I know that like 50 years ago, they used to give people lobotomies for terrible reasons.
I just asked you a question, sir. Are you going to be honest or are you going to continue to be dishonest? Because I didn't ask you about what used to happen. I didn't ask you about lobotomies. I asked you about whether or not, on average, your uninformed opinion is more likely to be correct than the consensus of experts in a field.
On average, my example was to say experts can get it wrong. And
yeah, you can go fuck yourself. Goodbye, sir. If you can't answer the question honestly, I have no interest in continuing the conversation, because there's literally no other answer than for me, for Andrew, for Darrel, for anybody, the odds that we as a non-expert are going to have a more accurate opinion than the consensus of experts in a field is laughably false. And the fact that you refuse to answer that, now, I'm not going to sit here and armchair diagnose, but maybe you're an angry narcissist who just called in to try to show off how smart you weren't.
Or he's mad at his mother for having diagnosed him or something. Who knows?
I don't know. Dave in Florida, pronouns are he, him. Welcome to the show. How can we help?
Hey, how's it going, Matt?
I don't know, because I think you're getting ready to ask me a question, and my answer is going to be, I don't know.
Matt, I have a question. Do you think that an infinite past is possible under your view? Like it's
I don't know.
Possible to have an
I don't know.
past?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Correct.
What position do you take on time?
I'm sorry?
Do you think that what position do you take on time? Are you like a presentist? Do you think like only the present exists?
I don't have a position on time. I'm fine with the notion that past events existed, but they don't exist currently.
Okay.
What I don't see. So I don't see what the relevance of any of this is. I'm not just here to be quizzed on questions where I don't know the answer. Do you know the answer?
Well, I think that time is finite, right? I think time had a beginning, and that would have started right when God created the universe.
And see, so the current model of cosmology suggests that time, the local time that we experience within our universe, started at the Big Bang. But whether or not there was some other time, some meta time that existed prior to that, we don't know. But obviously, if you have a God creating something, creation takes time. Because there's at T0, there's not a creation, and at T1 there is a creation. So creation is an act which requires time. So you can't have a being outside. You cannot have a being outside of time creating time, because there's no time to create time.
But you could still be a theist and be a temporalist. I think God is in time.
Okay. Congratulations. Do you have any evidence that God exists? I really don't care what your speculations are about a God. What reason do we have to think that a God exists?
Well, the Kalam cosmological argument.
Okay. I posted a video last month called The End of the Kalam Cosmological Argument. The Kalam Cosmological Argument does not include the proposition God at all.
Well, it just concludes that a timeless, spaceless, and material
No,
being
no,
exists.
no, sir. No, sir. No, sir. It doesn't.
That-
The
that-
Kalam, no, sir. It doesn't. Would you listen for a moment? Would please stop? Please stop talking. The Kalam cosmological argument is everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. The universe began to exist. Therefore, the universe has a cause for its existence. Correct or not?
Right.
Yeah. At no point does it tell you anything about the properties. I'm sorry.
Well, that's the first stage of the argument. There's
That is the complete argument. If you have additional arguments to add on to it, those arguments are separate. They may be considered a second prong of the Kalam, but the Kalam cosmological argument as presented, which I'll be doing a video on this because William Lane Craig evidently didn't like my video about the end of the Kalam, despite the fact that scientists and philosophers just put out an hour-long, here's how the Kalam is horribly broken. At the end of the day, there's nothing about the Kalam that says there is, in fact, a God. That is something that people add on to it because they say, because the conclusion of the Kalam is, therefore, the universe has a cause. And then people like you say that cause must be timeless, spaceless, blah, 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 blah. Those are bald ass assertions, which, by the way, you cannot demonstrate that God is those. And by the way, Dave, you just said that God wasn't timeless. So how dare you try to use the Kalam to suggest that there must be a timeless God while you're advocating for a non-timeless God?
Well, I'm saying that I have sympathies towards the arguments. I
don't,
parts within
Dave.
the argument I can disagree
Okay.
with.
I'm looking for people who are actually going to defend the proposition. I'm not looking for people who have sympathies for particular arguments.
So you're not convinced by the Kalam?
No, sir. I've done videos and debated it many, many times at major universities.
Did you have it against the Kalam cosmological argument to show why?
I'm sorry? I've done entire videos about what fails in the Kalam cosmological argument, as have other philosophers, as have philosophers and scientists.
Do you disagree with?
I disagree with you, Dave. Goodbye. We have Duke in California. Thanks for waiting. You're on with Dr. Darrel Ray and Matt Dillahunty.
Hey, thanks. Thanks for taking my call. So I wish I had an elevator pitch for this, but I'm trying to do the best I can. I got into an argument with someone about the nature of belief. And so I hold that a true dichotomy is two sets that are mutually exclusive and jointly exhaustive. So that means nothing can fall out of those two sets. And so when it comes to belief, everything either believes a proposition or it doesn't believe the proposition. And
Correct.
The position of the person I was arguing with said, no, that's not true. Something can fall outside of those two sets.
No, it can't.
And so, okay. So basically what it came down to is I said everything in our known universe either believes God exists or doesn't believe God exists. And the position of the person that I was arguing with said, no, there are people who don't believe a God exists. And then the other set are people who do not believe a God exists. And so everything else would fall out of those two sets. So I just
you just said the same thing twice. You said there are people who believe that God doesn't. So it's really simple. And there's the law of non-contradiction. There's identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. Those are the three foundations of logical thought. A equals A. A does not equal not A. Everything is either A or not A. So if the proposition is X is true, you either accept that proposition or you do not accept it. There is no middle ground.
Okay. And so let me just be very clear, because I may have said it wrong, but I agree with you on those laws of logic and that everything either fits in set A or set B. But I think the position, I'm trying to be fair, the person who I was arguing with said, only people with a mind can fit in those two sets. And everything else in the universe that do not have a mind.
No, it's just false. A rock does not believe that a God exists. It is incapable. It couldn't possibly believe because it doesn't have a mind, but it does not believe. It is not convinced that the proposition is true. You are either convinced of the proposition or you are not convinced of the proposition. And that's true for everything. Rocks, golf clubs, assholes, both figurative and literal.
Okay, all right. All right, that's basically it, because that's the position I took, and I just wanted to get a second opinion. So I'd have to just, tell them, hey, somebody else said something different that agreed with me. So
Which gets you absolutely nowhere. Going to them and saying you found somebody who agrees with you is pointless and stupid. And it doesn't matter if you show them this video, because until you can understand and describe and explain why you are correct, you will make no headway, and you should make no headway. At no point should you go to someone else and say, well, I called Matt and he agreed with me, because their response should be big fucking deal. That's a fallacious appeal to authority. Instead, you have to actually learn this stuff and explain it to the person you're talking to.
I totally agree with you. So when
then go therefore and do that.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome. Do that thing. I bless you to go forth and unto the world and extolling the virtues of identity, non-contradiction, and excluded middle. I have, I think Steve in California here may be at least deistic, but he wants to talk a little bit about psychological issues related to religion. So,
all right,
I'm hoping Darrel can just take over and I can sit back and do nothing.
Well, I'm glad you did the last one. That's not my expertise.
Oh, actually, I screwed up, and we'll get to Steve. Steve, hang on. I'm only muting you for a second, because I promise. I talked about all the shows. And then I forgot to say that if you missed any of the shows every week on the various shows, we do something that allows you to catch up on some of the shows. We do this.
We don't want multiple waves of this transphobia virus. Thank you very much. We don't want new variants of the transphobia virus. Yeah. We don't want to go through Greek letters of transphobia viruses. No, thank you.
You're attributing obviously a lot of importance to the order, and I think that where the major disagreement comes from here is the origin of that order. Not to be glib, but are you familiar with evolution?
I'm generation old, so it's not a surprise to me really that different cultures and different generations have different attitudes towards sex.
Are you using your mind to come to conclusions?
Don't have any choice.
That's right. Thank you. That's great. Someone answered a question today. I feel great. I'm done. That's it.
Yay, we're done, Kenneth.
God doesn't need to change his mind. He's seen all of time. To suggest that God changes his mind over time would make God subject to time, but God is timeless. See? I can do this shit all day long. I almost put my hat back on just.
That should be a part of your comic show there, man.
As we're coming out of there, yeah. I got more hats, though. I got loads of hats. I got this nice red hat. It's one of my all-time favorites, the Black Lives Matter red hat. But thanks so much for waiting. Steve, you are on with Dr. Darrel Ray. How are you?
I'm okay. I was hoping I could talk to Matt a little bit.
Well, okay. I'm here too.
Basically, I guess the theme of the week is religious. Do you think religious trauma isn't real? And I had some things, some words and phrases to throw out. One of which is Jerusalem syndrome. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's when people basically go to Jerusalem and they have some kind of breakdown.
Yep. Yeah, it's actually been quite old. It's been around for centuries. thousands of years before Christianity, before Judaism. Probably first seen maybe even in Zoroastrianism. So yeah, I know.
You want to think about something that's really cool? Watch footage of the Beatles' first concerts, and you will see something that is every bit as serious and pronounced as Jerusalem syndrome in the women who are screaming and fainting and overcome with ecstasy at the mere presence of the Fab Four.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to say, I wouldn't really call it trauma, but I had my own mental health issues, and a lot of them had to do with waiting for like a higher power to basically speak to me, and I eventually came to the conclusion that I should start taking my life into my own hands. And I wouldn't call it trauma, but it did kind of set me back, I believe, in some ways.
Send you back. I don't know. I didn't follow what you meant when you said send you back.
Yeah.
It was,
when you came out of religion, you went backwards. You felt like you had to start all over again. Is that what you're saying?
No, I would say in clinical terms, it was a learned helplessness where I was waiting for some kind of religious click. I was waiting for a golden trumpet, if you will. And it took me a long time to start being more proactive and having basically, I guess the clinical term would be agency in my life. Right. Because I was hung up on when is the end of the world going to come around tomorrow, or waiting for a sign basically, or I think there's a lot of, in my unprofessional opinion, I think there's a lot of crossover between schizophrenia and religious belief.
Well, I'm not going to go into schizophrenia, but let's just say that religions of all types tend to infantilize people. They tend to make you dependent. And that's what I hear you describing. How many years were you in religion? How many years were you in religion? How much were you indoctrinated as a child?
I wasn't, to be honest. I went to a Christian school, and then I went to church on and off as an adult, and then I found the Amazing Atheist, and that's kind of where I was in thought, but in belief, I still believed in the possibility of a higher power. I still do, actually, which was kind of going to come to my next question. But there was a lot of, I would say, in a fundamental sense of psychological waiting for a golden trumpet, whatever it was. And the main golden trumpet I was listening for was some kind of religious sign. I would, the phrase, not all who wander are lost. So I would, go on long walks, and I would wait for some kind of sign or something to click, and it just, never clicked. So while I wouldn't necessarily it would definitely, I feel like I lost a lot of time waiting for a sign.
You did. And some opportunities to probably function better in this world, learn some skills, get educated. There's probably a lot of opportunities you missed because of that. But the question now, and I think you're doing, sounds to me like you're doing well. You've taken control of your life. You're no longer waiting for this trumpet to blow.
Yeah, I mean, to expand on that more, there are some things, some people might call it flow or something like that, where, there were times where I did feel like there was some kind of push behind what I was doing. And when it came to doing certain things, I didn't feel this push. Like, I feel like even now, the pursuit of money, I feel it is a very crude and worldly thing. And it's, I kind of, the pursuit of money doesn't have the same signs as some other things that I had come across. Like for me, music and chess were really profound. And those were things that had an emotional appeal to me, that I was waiting for some kind of spiritual thing. And for the most part, I didn't find it.
Yeah, I'm I'm with Darrel in that, exercise some caution when we start talking about what mental health conditions may or may not be associated with religious belief and religiosity, especially since some people try to equate and just say religion is a mental illness, which is absolutely not true. But as you're sitting here trying to find the things that mean something to you, those things that you have a preference for doesn't mean those things are better or more worthy. It just means they're perhaps more right for you. Maybe the same way that, maybe a pursuit of monetary improvement, it doesn't mean that much to you, and it definitely hasn't meant all that much to me. I think we both probably enjoy being better at chess more than that. It doesn't mean that somebody is doing something wrong by seeking financial gain, especially when the real question becomes, how do they use that? If Jeff Bezos, instead of flying off to space and seeking the way to make the most profit by having incredibly difficult employee rules, if he was instead just giving away money left and right in support of real initiatives, not just for tax breaks, okay, then I could see that pursuit of wealth being justified. I don't see it as justified. Well, I guess the thing is that to each their own. There are people who are going to find value and benefit in a variety of different pursuits, and I hope you find the ones that mean the most to you.
Okay. And if it's okay, to put it in a question term, does it take more faith to be an atheist than not? And my question is essentially...
No. It doesn't take any faith to not be convinced of something. Faith is the excuse people give when they believe something and they don't have a good reason. If you believe something and you have a good reason, faith never comes up. It doesn't enter the picture until you don't have a good reason. But atheism is not a belief in the sense that doesn't require you to be convinced that a God doesn't exist. It just requires you to not be convinced that a God does exist. And it doesn't take any faith to not be convinced. It's the default position. You start off not convinced. You have to become convinced.
Right, but isn't it... Okay, I would have to think it through because trying to caught me off guard. I thought it through before I called, but the fact that we're here, I would say, for lack of a better word, requires some explanation, and either this explanation is supernatural or not. And so, if one lacks a belief in a God, doesn't it imply that they believe that the universe came about through natural means?
No, the fact that I'm not convinced a God exists doesn't tell you anything at all about what I believe about how the universe began. I may or may not believe that it had natural or supernatural origins, and that's a question with different foundations. But even if I'm the person who I am, which is I do not believe there are any gods. In fact, I actively believe there are no gods. I do not accept any claim of anything supernatural, and that doesn't require faith. It doesn't require faith to not be convinced when there isn't evidence for the claim.
Okay, so if atheism is a lack of a belief in gods, okay, so is the following statement not true? Either the universe came about through natural means or supernatural means?
It should be natural or non-natural, because I don't know what supernatural is, and neither does anybody else, because nobody's been able to demonstrate that anything supernatural exists or is real or can impact with the natural world. So for a correct logical negation, it is the explanation for the origin of the universe is either natural or non-natural.
Okay, so what I would posit as non-natural, I would say something that violates the laws of physics.
I don't know what that means, but okay. I don't think that's a good definition of non-natural. There is the natural world, and if there's something that's not a part of the natural world, then you would have to demonstrate that. You don't just get to say, oh, well, it's something that violates the laws of physics. because now you're making a claim about the nature of the non-natural world, and I don't know what your foundation is. In any case, to date, no one has demonstrated anything supernatural, or that it could exist, or that it possibly exists, or that it interacts with reality in any detectable way. So as long as that's the case, not believing in it is the default position.
But humor me here, Mr. Dillahunty. If you don't believe in that, doesn't that imply that the universe, caused itself?
No. I cannot be convinced that the butler killed somebody, and the butler might still have killed somebody. What I am convinced of or not convinced of is irrelevant to what actually happened. And just because I'm not convinced that the butler did it doesn't mean I'm not convinced the maid did it, doesn't mean I'm not convinced the gardener did it. You can't conflate those. That's a failing of logical argument. If the proposition is some God exists, some people accept that proposition. I do not accept that proposition. My not accepting that proposition does not mean that I think the universe necessarily came about through non-supernatural causes. I do, but that's not a result of that.
Okay, but it kind of goes back to the special pleading where...
No, sir, I don't think you're listening anymore, because after I keep explaining logical stuff to you, you say, okay, but, and then the word special pleading leave your mouth. I'm going to give you exactly one chance to show me where there was a special pleading fallacy on my part, because it didn't fucking happen. Because I'm not making a case. I'm saying I'm not convinced that a God exists. How is that special pleading?
Okay, give me a minute.
How about I give you a week?
Hold on.
Nope. You can call back next week when you come up with it, because you're not going to sit here and accuse me of fallacies that didn't happen. And then I'm supposed to let you sit around and think about it. You know what I'd rather do? I'd rather just, here, I'm going to use my powers to make Darrel Ray vanish from the show, and I'm going to bring in Shannon Q.
Hi! It's magic.
It is. It's magic. Unfortunately, Darrel had power issues at his place, and so Shannon was wonderfully here on standby and can just take over now. So,
Oh, now
welcome.
I'm in trouble. Hi, thanks. I was sitting here doing some research, but I'm ready. I'm ready. I'm ready. My A game's up. I'm ready. I've brought up Collins Studio. I'm ready to chat.
Well, you got Alvin in North Carolina wants to ask you about the difference between an atheist and agnostic. Welcome.
Oh, why do you hate me?
I don't. I love you.
Yes, you do. Hi, Alvin. Alvin. Hi.
You asked the question.
Okay.
Yeah, you already asked the question. I want to know the difference between what you define as an agnostic and what you define as an atheist.
I think an agnostic is someone who suspends judgment on the question because they believe they don't have enough information to answer it. And an atheist is somebody who has a definitive answer to no to the proposition of whether there is or isn't a God.
So what would
But I think that it varies colloquially by person. So like people can use the moniker of atheist, but like people can utilize the moniker of atheist and say, I am an atheist, but maybe if you want to hold them to a super strict philosophical definition, that they would technically be an agnostic. But I don't think that there's any value in attempting to debate them on that because the substance of it isn't valuable.
So the shorter version for me is theism and atheism address belief. If you're convinced a God exists, you're a theist. If you're not convinced a God exists, you're an atheist. Gnosticism and agnosticism address knowledge. Knowledge is a subset of belief. And because of that, you could be an agnostic theist, a Gnostic theist. You couldn't really be an agnostic atheist unless you take the hard atheist position of asserting something. But Shannon's usage of people who either think that they can't take a position or even go down an agnostic route or a theological non-cognitivism is separate, because everyone is either convinced that some God exists or not convinced. And whether or not you claim to know or claim knowledge is kind of irrelevant, which I think is what she was saying, that it doesn't really expound on anything. I don't know. Is that clearer, Alvin?
Well, if there were proof, as an atheist, would you believe in God?
Of course. Atheism is that's just for me personally, and I guess for Shannon. I am not convinced that a God exists, but I'm happy to be convinced if there's actual evidence for it, or proof, as you like to say it. Unfortunately, in the entire history of the world, there have been lots and lots of claims and claims about evidence and claims about proof, and yet none of them, the burden of proof has yet to be met. So I'm happy to change my mind on anything once I've been presented with the evidence.
Yeah, it's just like saying, if you were convinced of something, would you be convinced of it? Yeah.
Yeah. I don't believe that Bigfoot's real,
Sure.
but as soon as you show me enough evidence that Bigfoot's real, I'll believe Bigfoot too.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'll call you back next week for your answer. Look at openletter.info. Look at
I'm
that.
probably not going to do that.
And I'll
No.
call back.
I don't need homework. I don't need homework, Alvin. I don't need homework.
Alvin, you
You're
either
talking to
showed
us
up-
right now.
You either showed up ready to
We have enough to
defend what
do.
you believe, or you were just here to advertise for something which we're going to delete. Which is it?
No.
Yeah, we're here now. You can talk to us now.
Used to look at it.
No, you refuse to explain yourself.
No,
No,
sir.
Alvin, no, that's a rhetorical device that you're not allowed to use with me. No, absolutely. You have your opportunity to defend yourself now. You are choosing to give us homework instead of actually presenting a position. So if you have a position, I would like you to present it. I will not be doing homework. I have enough to do. I'm a busy woman. So you're talking to me right now. Here's your opportunity.
Okay.
You can either take it or not take it. Go.
Okay. One of the things on openletter.info is
No, I don't want to hear that again. We're
Just
not
tell
gonna
us
go.
your
Just Tell
thing.
us without reference. Just
Okay.
tell us.
the letters times the product of the letters over the words times the product of the words equals pi to 5 digits. How do you explain that? I'll
What
get
letters?
1 month.
How do you multiply letters together? And what letters? In what language are you talking about? The letters in the original Hebrew?
In Hebrew, yes, it's called
In Hebrew. Okay. How do you translate those to numbers?
Well, they are numbers.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Gematria. Hebrew are numbers.
Okay. So they
You
equal
do that
pi.
equation I just gave you, you get pi to 5 digits. If you
And
did
that
the
tells me
exact
what?
same
That tells me
equation,
what? Let's say you're right. That tells me what? Let's say those letters
only
do
1 in
coincidentally
110,000
equal pi.
chance that would happen.
So
I don't care what
So
the
what?
odds are. It happened.
Only one-
Now that we've determined what had happened, you're saying, how do we explain that it happened? Well, it's going to happen a number of times in many different forms in many different places. Why are you thinking that it's significant?
Because this is the very first verse of the most read book in the world. And
No. That's appeal to popularity. Why do you think it adds up to only 5 digits of pi?
Well, I've done the calculations. You go to open info.
Ask about the calculations.
I told you.
Alvin,
You
I
can
asked,
see that.
why do you think that it adds up to pi?
Because if you take that pattern and all the other patterns, it's way beyond chance, way beyond modal capability.
No, sir. I didn't ask you that. Would you please listen to the fucking question that you're being asked? What do you think the explanation is for why that sums up to pi?
Because it proves that a higher intelligence wrote Genesis 1:1.
how?
How does
Why?
that do that?
Because it's improbable.
No. That which is improbable does not mean that God did it. Otherwise, when I hit the lottery, that means God did it, right?
No, the chances
No. So math is only something unlikely when it's fucking convenient for you. is when you give it to God, and the rest of the time it's not God. Well, I'm not going to be interested in your cherry picking special pleading ever again, Alvin. Goodbye.
But it equals a number, Matt.
It came up to a number, a pi number,
and
3 is a magic number.
Oh my gosh.
Yes, it is.
No, I wouldn't. If you had told me that there's going to be a call asking the difference between atheist and agnostic, and it was going to end up that the entire book of Genesis equals pi, the probability of that is off the charts. Didn't see it coming. Didn't see it coming. I'm ready for the next one, though.
Okay.
All right. I'm ready. Bring it up.
Jason has a curious question that if it's asked exactly the way it appears here, I think is instantly self-refuting. And I'm gonna read this, Jason, and then you see if you tell me why I think this is self-refuting. Jason says, if there's no referee, then can there be anything that resembles objective morality? What is the role of a referee, Jason?
Well, the referee basically says, hey, you're playing by the rules or you're not playing by the rules.
But isn't that a brain, a referee? An agent?
Yeah.
And isn't that agent then offering their subjective assessment?
Well, I guess unless it's, completely obvious that someone's cheating, I guess you could say it was subjective.
No, I've been a referee. I was a soccer referee for years, and let me tell you, it's that a lot of it is subjective. If you're a soccer referee, sometimes offside calls, especially if you're a lines person, are incredibly subjective. You just have to make a call. You may be wrong.
Yeah, an objective assessment is one that is non-subjective. So if you have some agent making a decision, now it's subjective.
And the rules exist irrespective of you as well.
So the only way you could have objective morality is if in fact there was no referee, but a rule that is indisputable, unequivocal, not subject to interpretation or debate or discussion.
Right. And so if God does exist, and if God is omnipotent, omniscient, then God would be, or at least could be, a source of objective morality.
No, it couldn't, because God has opinions about morality, right?
Right. Now, that's not to say that it wouldn't be arbitrary, because, if God is whatever people are saying God is, then it seems to me that God could think up any moral code and adhere to it, and then say that we would have to adhere to that moral code. But
yes, but that's just divine command theory, which makes it divine command theory is completely subjective.
Yeah, that just substitutes any meaning that I have grounded like in the word morality would disappear at that point in time, because it would just be morality would just be synonymous with God's opinion at that point. And morality means something different than that, like definitionally. Like definitionally, when you look at morality, it doesn't mean God's opinion. It means, striving to do good things, to reduce harm, to increase thriving. Like there's lots of different ways that you can look at it, but ultimately the definitions fall in and around those concepts. So if you're saying that God is the grounding of God could be the grounding of morality, then the meaning of morality just starts to become fleeting, and it's just that God's opinion equals what we should do, because God's opinion by the definition of the word morality and the concept that we understand it could be that we should all hurt each other. He could just change his mind one day if it's subjective and decide that we should all hurt each other as a matter of imperative, because that's his opinion. But I don't think that you would say that that's moral, because your understanding of morality isn't grounded in God. It's grounded in an understanding of the concept.
Right. And I guess that's where I'm at. I've been beating this existential crap around for 52 years. And I guess I'm finally coming around to the realization that I am, in fact, an atheist. But the reason I've been holding on to, some kind of belief in something beyond human beings is exactly that. Is because if there is nothing above human beings, then every human being is the captain of their own ship. And every human being can then equivalently define morality for themselves.
Okay, Jason, I gave a lecture a long time ago, which you can find online, called The Superiority of Secular Morality. So first of all, if you're wanting to hang on to a God concept because you want there to be objective morality, a God concept flies in the face of objective morality. It is the ultimate subjective morality if God is the source and ultimate arbiter. So the only way to have objective morality is to have a system where there's not a God, where there's not an agent doing anything. But I'm not convinced that we have an objective morality. I'm not convinced that such a thing does or could exist. But even if we only have subjective morality, that doesn't mean that it's all just anybody can do whatever they want. We have, as Shannon was pointing out, a basic description of what we would just define as morality. And morality isn't peanut butter. And there's no reasonable sense of morality where it's okay for me just to run around lopping off people's heads. So to suggest that it all devolves into chaos is flatly wrong. I don't know if you play chess, but chess is a game that human beings invented. The rules have changed over the years to improve the game. And because of there are rules of the game that were arbitrary, but they are objective in that, if you try to make a move that's illegal, it's still illegal. It's not a matter of opinion. But strategy on how to best proceed to avoid losing or to try to win, there can be different opinions on that because we don't know what the right answer is. Chess isn't solved. But we can say when someone has made a move that has definitely lost them the game. And we can say when someone's made a move that has definitely won them the game. It's in the middle where things are fuzzy. But that doesn't mean that if somebody sits down to a table, they can just scoot 4 pieces forward all at once and claim victory. And I think it's silly for us to look at morality and say, oh, without a God, or oh, without, this, it's just chaos, because that's a lie. It's absolutely not chaos. Our understanding of how best to act and how to punish certain behaviors and reward others in order to build a society, we've been doing that for the entirety of human history. We stand on the shoulders of the people who came before us who figured out that, hey, you know what? If we allow people to enslave other people, I might wind up being a slave, and that's a really bad thing. So let's get rid of that. If we allow people to run around just shooting each other left and right, I could get shot. If we allow people just to take each other's stuff, well, what's the point in having property? Instead of following it down the slippery slope to catastrophe, look at the facts of reality, which is that we have built up a variety of moral systems that, while they are all broken and imperfect, are not chaos. And we are not stuck going, well, if you say that it's moral to, engage in female genital mutilation, then I just have to say, well, that's your opinion and there's nothing else to say about it. That's not true. You can say they're wrong.
I agree.
I see the point that you're making, and I would like to, I guess, couch my mind and sit there, but the questions that come up for me are, we can say those things now, but it could have been that the Nazis won World War II. That could have happened.
Okay, I think that you're losing sight of what he's saying, though. Like, you're saying that people can just, what I'm hearing you say, if I'm understanding you correctly, is that you have this fear that if bad people have the brunt of the power, then they can kind of redefine what morality is and do bad stuff. But if we really understand what the word morality means, then we can see that in juxtaposition to that, what they're doing is in fact not moral, just definitionally, right? So we can always have the fear, and which is why we should always strive to make a better society, that bad people might gain power and do bad things. But them being able to call it moral doesn't make any sense, because the definition of the word moral would have to change. It would have to not be moral anymore.
And
right?
It could be that it does change. Like, for example, I know it's not hypothetical, and I hate hypotheticals as much as anybody, but it kind of gets across the point. Let's suppose that World War II was more awful than it was. And it came down to where there were just two people alive, two human beings left alive. One of them, a Nazi camp commander with a gun, and the other one, a Jewish prisoner. There are no other human beings alive.
Uh-huh.
In that scenario, someone saying the final solution is moral and good, well, who's right?
But how? Because you analyze it based on one sec, Jason. You analyze it based on what morality actually means, right? So it sounds to me like your fear is that bad people can do bad things and just redefine what words mean in order to justify doing it, that's what propaganda is, right? So that being the case is plausible, right? It's plausible that people can propagandize the meaning of words to redefine them so that they can utilize that new meaning or a new understanding of that word or that term or that concept in order to justify what they're doing. So if that sounds like what you're saying, you're talking about definitions of terms. You're not talking about what is or isn't moral as you understand it now. Because if I asked you right now if that was moral, you would say, obviously it's not, because my understanding of morality definitionally, based on how I understand the concept, tells me that that is not the moral thing to do. So you're going in, it's antithetical to your own individual position to say that that's moral. So you would have to admit that that's not moral, right? Your individual position based on your understanding of what morality is tells you that that's not moral. And the reason is because you understand what moral is. So your fear isn't that morality is subjective and that it can just fly off the rails. Your fear is that people can just redefine terms.
Well, I guess I would have
it's a linguistic argument, not a philosophical one.
Jason,
if you ask me,
Jason, in your hypothetical, when it gets down to there's only two people left, are you the Nazi or the Jew?
I'd hope to be the Jew, but a lot of good people in Nazi Germany ended up becoming Nazis, and there's no.
Well, thank you, Professor Trump.
When your society is going a certain direction.
Goodbye. There were good people on both sides, says Trump and Jason. See, the reason I ask in your scenario, your ridiculous scenario, where we get down to there's only two people left in the world with diametrically opposed views. How do you know what morality is? You do it by listening to fucking Shannon. And that is, morality has a definition that does not give a fuck whether there's two Nazis left alive, one Nazi left alive, zero Nazis left alive. It is what it is. Definitionally, if we care about the betterment of the world, killing the Jews is not the way to do it. The Nazis are just fucking wrong. It doesn't matter whether they won. It doesn't matter how many guns they had. It doesn't matter that they end up in that position. What you're afraid of is not that morality, as Shannon pointed out, is somehow failing, but that some people might do what they want irrespective of what's moral. And that's a real question. But the way to combat that is to educate them on what morality is and to show how they are in conflict with the foundations of that morality. But I'm not going to sit here and do there were some good people who became Nazis. Well, there are good people who've done all kinds of things, but once you become a Nazi, you're no longer a good person.
Certainly not moral.
All right. Wow. And oddly enough, we have back-to-back Jasons on morality. So welcome, Jason, in Canada.
Jason 2.0 from the good place where all the good people live.
Howdy.
I'm honored to talk to you. As long as we continue to have a conversation about the basics, how we progress with morality. We repeat arguments for generations, which is needed, but we have little conversation on what to do next. I have an example, an idea of how we might do that if you need.
I lost you. Can you
Hello?
still hear him? Is it my audio?
Oh.
Hello?
Yeah, did you hear me?
Yes.
Oh.
What's your example?
Okay. Oh, so did you hear my question there, or do you want an example there?
No.
Okay, so the example would be, for example, Peterson has changed the conversation when it comes to as theists turn on theists as what it means to be a theist. And if there's a lot more deists out there, we could welcome them to a common ground if we could just kind of build one. We build so much time going over the basic arguments again and again. You talked about your 3-value comparison method. There's Sam Harris's landscape. But we don't ever build something like that so that we can be hey, here's something that you could say that you believe in as a basic moral, so that we don't have theists going, well, atheists believe in nothing.
Are we talking about the definition of morality again?
I don't know, because first of all, you're referencing Jordan Peterson, I'm assuming, and I don't give a fuck what he has to say. And then you're suggesting we should build bridges with deists, whereas deists aren't atheists. And while they may be reasonable on some things, and they could be secular humanists to some extent, I'm happy to have them come along, but I'm not going to kowtow to deistic ideas, because that's stupid.
No, and I'm not saying we should cow down. I'm saying that we could build a simple common ground. We could label a ground that we could try and go on. As long as
I don't know, what is it you're trying to label? What is it you're trying to label? Because I think we've already done this in the sense of talking about secular humanism. We're talking about well-being. What more do we need to do?
Okay, so if we we go with atheists, and that's a label that isn't a label. That's one of the very big problems. We spend so much of our time.
It is a label. And by the way, Jason, we are over time and you're fucking losing me quickly. Are you going to talk about morality, or are you going to talk about atheism? Because you say it's a label that isn't a label. Yes, it fucking is. Talk about morality. We're running out of time.
There's not a lot of substance, but there's a lot of words.
I agree that it absolutely is a label. I'm saying that it's one that doesn't have any kind of definition for morality. So Christians will try to be like.
That's why I asked why you were talking about it. Would you just talk about morality? Because you're wasting my time now.
So if we agreed on a common ground as, say,
You think that there's not an understood definition of morality amongst just humans in general? Because it sounds like you're saying atheism doesn't entail a definition of morality as a tenet of atheism. Sure. Yeah, I'll agree with that. Atheism is the answer to a question, and that question isn't what is morality. It is there a God? So I'll agree with that. Sure, fine, whatever. But it sounds to me like you're saying that there isn't, but you can. But it sounds to me like you're saying that there is not a unilaterally sort of agreed upon concept of morality just amongst humans in general. And I think that I would argue against that, because most legal systems have similar kind of principles to them. You can argue that some of them aren't as moral as others once you understand the definition of morality, but you're using that definition of morality as the grounding in order to make that argument, right? Absolutely. Which is usually something like harm reduction and increasing of thriving. Those are things that are inarguably, I think, part of the definition of morality universally. I don't think that you or Jordan Peterson or Matt or anybody would disagree with that. So that definition does exist irrespective of any theology or lack thereof. So it's not up to atheists to create, it's reinventing the wheel, and it's solving an unnecessary problem.
So
the better conversation to have would be, how do we become more moral, and how do we convince other people to be moral? Not, can we agree upon a definition of morality? Because that's answering a question that's already been answered.
So let me ask this.
Okay.
Let me ask this. There's a deist, somebody from Westboro Baptist Church, a generic nondescript theist, and me. and you say, if we can just find common ground, what's the common ground between us?
So the common ground is exactly what she was just saying. Like it's as unfortunately as simple as really just giving a simple definition to common sense. Like I know we can't define it completely, but we can give the very basic common ground decency of exactly what she was talking about. Like we look at suffering first, right? So we go and we give 3 values of suffering, and we want to avoid the most suffering, like Sam Harris's landscape. That we want.
I'm sorry, but I asked for the fucking common ground. Westboro does not care about human suffering. This life is like dirty. This life, listen to me, is like dirty rags. It's a place to wipe your feet. It's the next life that matters for Westboro Baptist Church. So what you're saying isn't common ground.
So what we need something to try and separate what is the common ground for people that we can agree with and have a reasonable conversation with, and who are the ones that we can't agree with, right? Like I'm not a fan of Peterson, but he's pulling a lot of people to just have some basic decency, and suddenly those people are thinking that it's okay to
Is he? Trans people would disagree with you. Trans people would unequivocally disagree with you. 100%. So would anybody who's at my aunt passed away last week of COVID. His anti-vax stances and anti-mandate stances, I would disagree with those because I think that they probably directly contributed to the people around my aunt deciding that they didn't need to get a vaccine because it was their personal freedom, even though it infected her and she ended up dying. So I don't agree, nor will you hear me agree, with Jordan Peterson, of all goddamn people, bringing people together to increase the moral fortitude of the world.
Meanwhile, as the only one of the 3 of us who's actually sat down and had dinner and conversations with the man, I'll chime in that he's a nut. But all you seem to be saying, Jason, is now we need to make a list of the groups of people who we could find common ground with and the ones we can't find common ground with, and then find common ground with the groups of people we can find common ground with. Well, congratulations for your solution to everything. What is it?
It's not a solution to everything. It's a it's a point to start off with. It's a place so that we can see the good in the other.
Do you think that nobody's ever thought of this before? What is the fucking common ground and who is it common with?
Everybody that can agree that suffering is bad.
Thank you for your tautologies. I have zero interest in people who try to solve problems with tautologies and fucking banal. Of course we need to find common ground with the people that we can find common ground with. That's diplomacy 101. When you get to diplomacy 201, call us back.
I don't even get what that was. We need to get people to be more moral by. Well, I don't understand. Maybe I'm lost. I don't even understand.
It is
where
ridiculous.
That was going.
It is ridiculous to suggest that. You know what we really need to do? We need to find common ground with the people that we can find common ground with, and we need to identify the groups that we can't find common. Well, no fucking shit, Sherlock. Some of us have been here trying to do that for a long time.
And I'm not a fan of Jordan Peterson, but he's the best. he's doing so much good work. What? I don't understand.
Thank you for that insightful comment that nobody's ever thought of before. Gosh, I
Darrel
never
would've
thought
done better
about
than
finding
me.
common ground. It's difficult. We have run overtime, past time, and I have a bunch of stuff to do. Thank you so much for being ready to jump in, Shannon. And man, you jumped in like full force. I had to take a breath. And
That's right. Stand back. Hurricane Shannon's coming through.
it's funny because someone in chat, while I was sitting here quietly letting you go off on somebody, was like, why is Matt so hostile right now? And I'm like, I'm not even saying anything. Shannon's going after it.
I'm the one with the hair.
On that note, please remember, we'll be seeing Dr. Darrel Ray again this Wednesday, the Hang Up, and on Secular Sexuality right here at the Atheist Community of Austin's premiere show on Thursday nights. Woo! You couldn't be doing anything important on Thursday nights that's more important than secular sexuality, because they're going to take questions about sex. I'm pretty sure they're being secretly hidden on YouTube because there's sex in the title, and it's, you know, really good questions about all aspects of sexuality and gender and everything else. It's going to be a good show this weekend. We appreciate everybody. Put the crew back up for doing all the hard work. Yay. Look at all of those beautiful people.
Thanks, guys.
We should put them up the whole time, and you and I can just talk in the background, not visible to anybody.
Oh, that's fine. I'm good. I was reading a research paper that was really interesting, but this is fun too.
Well, I look forward to hearing it. By the way, give Paul a hug for me. Tell him Todd will be done with the rest of my stuff and we could get to work later this week.
I know he's waiting for you.
I have 4 videos to do in the next 20 hours, and I've been having breathing problems. But
oh, he's a patient man, and he'd probably like you to be alive when you do it. So just please wait.
I am recovering nicely, and thank you everybody for the well wishes. Thank you for Shannon for filling in. Thank you to Dr. Darrel Ray. I'm sorry you had a power outage. We appreciate everybody's support, and we will see you again next week here on the Atheist Experience.
What will it take for you to start opening your eyes, to start questioning the bullshit everyone around you buys? You think it's any of your business what goes on between my thighs? I wonder when we'll be rid of your life.
It's time to get sexy, so watch Secular Sexuality live Thursdays at 7 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTSS and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callsex.